being said, I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the Simsbury Board of Education, December 10th, 2013. And with that, we have recognitions.
Yes,
Mr.
we have two outstanding students we'd like to recognize this evening. I had an opportunity to attend a luncheon with the students and the families, along with Neil Sullivan and Brian White, the principal at the middle school at Farmington Country Club. And I am going to ask Brian to go first, and he's going to give a little background on what the awards were for and introduce his Henry James student, and then we'll have Neil do the same for our high school student.
Absolutely.
Brian?
There you go. Great.
Yeah. Sure.
Great. Yeah.
So, good evening, everybody. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Megan Russell. Megan's a student at Henry James, and she's this year's recipient of our CAS Award. Very proud to recognize Megan for all of her work this year. We have many great students at Henry James. It's always a very tough selection for us. What's so nice about this recognition is really we have input from our full faculty, so it's truly an honor to receive this award. And of course, we really look for students who really strike that balance between strong academic interest and performance, as well as community service and sort of giving back. So just to highlight a few of the things that we recognize Megan for, she's been very involved in a number of activities such as our Unified Theater and Sports programs. These are programs that really encourage participation in students of all abilities, including students with special needs. So she's had some outstanding involvement in that program. She was also involved in a community service project last year through her social studies class. The outcome of that was actually making some recommendations to the town to improve on Iron Horse Boulevard the number of trash receptacles and other things just to improve that section of town. So very pleased to introduce you to Megan and to recognize her tonight. She's joined by her mother and it looks like her younger brother. So congratulations, Megan.
Very impressed that Mr. White got the jacket and tie even on a snow day. I should have called before I came to the board meeting. But my pleasure, as always, to introduce an outstanding student, one you know extraordinarily well at the high school level. Our selection for the superintendent's award was Jacob, so we can do that. Obviously, a lot of why he was the selected student has been, we've had about a dozen students over the years now through this position as a board rep. I would put him right at the top in terms of his ability to understand the issues of the board, to articulate the student point of view, and obviously as I looked toward worthy recipients, Jacob was certainly easy to identify. His work with your board is the most known to you, but his unbelievable efforts with the Future Business Leaders of America to become a national, we never had done anything, I'm not even sure we've had a state officer in my time as principal. To have a national officer of FBLA is truly remarkable, opened up some unbelievable opportunities. He travels a lot more than I do right now as an 18-year-old, able to go to great places through FBLA. But I thought what I would share is one more anecdote of an example just recently with another student by the name of Brian Gelman. Jacob leads a new stock market club that we have in our school, interested in how investments work. They started with advisor Bob Avery last year. They maybe a little over a year ago?
Yeah. Well, the club's been going, this is the third year.
Third year of the club. Yeah. So they started in on it. They do a whole bunch of simulations around those kind of activities, and they approached me at the end of last year and they said, what do you think about the notion of taking this to kind of a next level? And we actually have partnered with a local financial services group, thanks to Jacob and Brian's leadership. They actually have made a donation where we're going to make a little bit of the investment real. We've kept it below your $1,500 threshold, so you know that. But actually, to take the notion of the simulations and the inherently risky behavior that those kind of simulation games can create with investment, and make it something more real so that the students understand real money that the club will try to build and at some point hopefully reap some dividends from. So a very interesting concept. The type of thing that most students kind of can't pull off at this stage in their life, and yet Brian and Jacob, as the leaders of this club, helped do it. Actually, Simsbury High School graduate by the name of Dennis Horgan, who also serves as one of our rugby coaches, is partnering with them on it. So just another example that I thought was a good one to share with the board of the kind of things that are setting Jacob apart. I won't even talk about 8 AP courses before he finishes high school and everything else that he does, but and some interesting plans in terms of where he's applying to college. So why don't you talk for a moment about that?
Yeah, I'm probably going to end up going, as some of you know, I was born in Canada, so I'm probably going to end up going back, hopefully either to the University of Alberta or the University of British Columbia.
Excellent. Wonderful.
So, Jacob Camp.
Very wonderful.
Jacob's mom is right here too. So we should have said that.
Wonderful. All
That was
set.
great opportunities for both students. Great recognitions, and we are very, very proud of you, and hope to hear many good things from both of you. Thank you very much, and thank you to the parents and the little brother. What do you think of your sister there? Yeah, I see that smile. That's great. Great, good. Thank you.
Megan, don't feel like you have to stay for the whole meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Gracefully. All right.
Very good.
Congratulations.
Great, good job. All right, moving on to public audience. Megan and her mom and little brother. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the board? If so, please state your name and address. All right, seeing none, we will move on to board and administrative communications. And we'll start with Jacob.
Well, just before I start, I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Curtis and Mr. Sullivan for nominating me for that award, and thank you to my family for supporting me in everything that I do. So at the high school right now, I think all of the students appreciated the combined late opening yesterday and the snow day today.
No, not a great call.
Catching up on rest and homework and all that. So preparations for Les Mis are ongoing, and the show is going to happen at the end of January and into February. Army and Air Force recruiters are visiting the guidance office this week. The Library Media Center, NHS, and Student Council are joining forces to collect items for the South Park Inn homeless shelter and a clothing drive that's going on there right now. Boys and girls hockey as well as boys and girls basketball begin their seasons before the Christmas break. And some seniors are starting to hear back on their early action college applications.
Good. Exciting times. Very good. All right, moving on. Susan.
Nothing tonight.
All right, thank you.
Just like to say thank you to Tara for representing us so well over the past week. The relatives in New York who saw your big debut there and were very impressed. So thank you very much for representing us so well.
Thanks. Todd.
All set, Lydia?
Chris.
Nothing, Lydia.
All set tonight?
Welcome.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Tara.
I was talking about Tootin' Hills and that cool school program that went on last week. That was very exciting, and it was a great opportunity for all those kids to get involved in that. I'm looking at Kevin and Cassette and the principal of the school. It was a wonderful thing, and it's wonderful anytime our kids can get those kind of opportunities.
Absolutely.
And they did a great job.
They did. They narrowed down, they took about 45 minutes worth of footage throughout the morning from 8 to 10, and they narrowed it down to 8 minutes. So I felt they captured the school really well. So the whole morning was great. So it turned out better than I thought.
Very good.
It's great. What an honor. Good. Thank you.
I have a couple of things. I just want to inform the board that the strategic school profiles for the school year of 2011-2012 are now posted on the Connecticut State of Education website. So they're all on there. There's the district profile and then the individual school profiles on that website. And secondly, I just want to let you know about some professional development that we have scheduled for this week. Unfortunately, today was canceled. We have a staff developer from Teachers College, Kate Roberts, who is working with our secondary folks on literacy across the content areas. Today was the high school day, and well, actually, today was supposed to be the middle school day. We switched that. The high school's going to do theirs at a later time, but tomorrow Kate will be at the middle school. I'm hoping she was stuck in Buffalo as well because of the weather, but she'll be there. And the focus will be on writing, the writing work that actually Brian shared with you last time he was at the board, and writing across the content areas. So we're excited about that.
Good. Susan.
Great. As I shared with the board last time, ERCM, Emergency Response Crisis Management, who was our consultant to run our security audit, they did visit the Simsbury Public Schools last Tuesday, and we were able to conduct 3 very successful lockdown drills using our new standard response protocol. Those drills occurred at the high school, at the middle school, and at Squadron Line. And we chose those buildings in particular because they are our largest and most complex, and we figured if we could have successful drills there, then that would make the others facilitated in a much better way. And the feedback from ERCM was incredible. They said it was no joke. They said we set the bar high in the nation of what they've seen as far as our first run through with the standard response protocol. And we were joined in collaboration with the Simsbury Police Department, which was fantastic. Both of our school resource officers joined us in all 3 drills, as well as Detective Tommy Sheehan, so he was with us as well, which was great. The drills lasted longer than they would typically. They're about 45 minutes in length. And the reason for that is teams, when we were going around and conducting the drill, provided feedback to every single classroom. We actually walked into every classroom. We gave them feedback around positioning, things to think about in a very developmentally appropriate way, whether that be our kindergartners and preschool at Squadron Line to our seniors at the high school. So it was a very productive day and time well spent, and we'll be continuing that process with the remaining schools in the coming weeks. That's it.
Work. All right. Matt.
Great. Just one piece I wanted to follow up on, and that is our ongoing preparation for the budget presentation and overview that I'll provide to the Board of Ed in mid-January. And we have completed our building-based meetings with our principals, our building leaders. Very appreciative of their thoughtfulness and their planning and putting forward different proposals and ideas. We're taking a hard look at all of that information in preparation for our ongoing discussions. So in January, we'll provide a range of probably where we feel we can come in and look forward to your feedback as a board on future things to think about, with certainly our primary goal to move forward the school system and build upon our longstanding excellence, but also recognize the local context and the challenges that we're faced with economically. So we are well on our way to presenting in January.
Good. All right, and I just have a few quick things. First of all, I have for Chris and Tara and Mike, last week we had the swearing in for the oath of office for our board positions. So here you are as your official. We're all sworn in, so we are all ready, set to go. Congratulations to all 3 of you as we continue another year. Number 2 is I'd like to just congratulate Betty Lakota. Both Matt and I had a chance to attend the Teacher of the Year ceremony at the Bushnell a few weeks ago, and so she was honored along with about probably, I would say, about 100 other district Teacher of the Year recipients at the Bushnell on stage. So it was very, very, very nice. It was nice to see her up there and the others. And the Connecticut Teacher of the Year is John Mastriani from Hall High in West Hartford, and he's Director of Performing Arts. So it's a very well-deserved honor for Mr. Mastriani and West Hartford as he represents all of us. Also, I just wanted to let you know that we had the Cape Caps Convention back before Thanksgiving, and it was a very, very good convention. The focus was keeping focus on student growth in a time of rapid change, and we had probably about 600 school board members from around the state, school board attorneys, educational leaders from around the state that came and participated. And I was fortunate to moderate a session with Commissioner Stephen Pryor and several other key people at State Department of Education regarding Common Core and teacher and admin eval and a few other things. So it really was a very, very good session. We also had a guest, Governor Malloy, joined us for lunch and was a guest speaker. And as you know, he in the past 2 years is very, very instrumental in education reform, also in securing funds for our districts that are very well needed for where we are going with that. And on another note, we have received the Board of Distinction Award right here. Show it proudly. Thank you to fellow board members for all the work that we have done for our high standards, dedication, and teamwork. So this is actually our 5th year of receiving this award. So with that, one of you or anyone is eligible for a free certificate to one free CABE workshop, and excluding the one today, the CABE board member workshop that I had to monitor today. So anyway, congratulations for all the work that you've done another year, and we have a little plaque here that I will give to you, Matt,
Alrighty.
to put up, and also special little pins for all of you to wear very, very proudly of your service on the Board of Education. So here you are. Congratulations to all of you. And also with that, a little bit bittersweet for me is I concluded my term as president of CABE. It was a 2-year term, and I had a very, very interesting time and 2 years, and with that I left with a little bit of tears, but it was well worth it, the entire 2 years, and more importantly, in my speech, in my farewell remarks, I really had made mention of my local Board of Education, my colleagues on this board, and I'll just summarize. I want to thank my own board, Simsbury, where I served for the past 16 years. It was here where I first developed my abiding passion for public education and first saw the difference a local board can make in the life of its schools. So with that, I thank you all for allowing me, and also administration, and with the support of all of you out there, parents and teachers and administrators, to be your president for the past 2 years and serve not only the students of this district and staff and my fellow board members, but also students of Connecticut. So thank you. It was a great run, and I am now immediate past president, still on the board, and I like to maybe consider myself as an elder statesman. And so with that, I will continue, in service to help the school children of Connecticut and local board members. So that is it, and we will move on. All righty. On to recommended actions. Okay. Last but not least, this is staring me in my face. This is what it's all about. And as I have it here, it's a thank you card. I'll pass it on to fellow board members. And this is to Board of Education. Thank you for the new playground. It's really, really fun. We get to climb on the monkey bars and the Rocky Mountains. We twist and turn down the swirly slide. We invite you. We are invited. This is a very special invite to come for recess and play with us. We hope to see you soon. Thanks again, Mrs. Baggett's class, first grade squadron line, and all of the students have signed. So this is what it's all about. This is very special, and yes, we will be joining you on the monkey bars in the Rocky Mountains.
Right.
And Mr. Curtis, you will also be joining us.
Be there.
Absolutely. I'll let you go first. You're taller.
Just remember, you can't go head first.
So. Absolutely. No telling him.
How many rules?
No, absolutely. So, okay. All right. We are recommended actions. Exhibit 1, approval of the minutes of the November 12th, 2013 meeting. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
I abstain.
Any abstentions? Thank you, Susan. We are on Exhibit 2, Election of Officers, in your packet. And with that, this is for the chairman. I'm going to make a request to open the floor for nominations for chairman of the Simsbury Board of Education.
Lydia, I will move you, Lydia Tadone, be nominated for chairman of the Simsbury Board of Education.
Second, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Second motion, I would like to ask Chris to continue. Excuse me.
We're going to move on to vote.
Move on to, absolutely, we've done that. I would like to make a request to open the floor for nominations for vice chair of the Simsbury Board of Education.
And Lydia, I would like to move that Chris Kelly be nominated for vice chairman of the Simsbury Board of Education.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? Any opposition? Motion passes. Thank you. Terry, ready? Over here. Chris?
Yep. Regarding secretary, I would move that Mike Goman be nominated for secretary of the Simsbury Board of Education.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Congratulations to,
Now we got to vote.
Now we have to
now we have to
elect.
elect them. Go back. That's right. Thank you. All righty. I now would close nominations for chair of the Simsbury Board of Education.
I'm going to move Lydia Tadone be elected as chairman of the Simsbury Board of Education.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion passes. Next, for vice chairman,
And I would like to move that Chris Kelly be elected as vice chairman of the Simsbury Board of Education.
Second.
any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion passes. For secretary,
Lydia, I'll move that Mike Goman be elected as secretary of the Simsbury Board of Education.
Second.
any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion passes. Congratulations, Chris and Mike. Continuing on.
You too, Lydia.
Oh, thank you. All right. Very good. Now we are moving on to Exhibit 3, Gift to Simsbury Public Schools.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to take that one. So, an extremely, extremely exciting time for the Simsbury Public Schools. This evening, the administration is going to request that the Board of Education approve a gift from the Kathleen McGowan Revocable Trust in the amount of $479,715.41 to the Simsbury Public Schools. Before we formalize that motion, I would just like to say, what a time it's been. I mean, this gift has brought such positive attention and shed such a positive light on our school district over the course of past several weeks. We've invited Attorney Lou George here this evening. In a couple of minutes, Lou, I'll ask that you speak and tell a little bit of the story, because I think it's really inspiring. And I think, I know over the course of the last month or so, I've come to learn quite a bit about Miss McGowan and what she stood for in her 30-plus years as a first-grade teacher at Central School, Belden School, and she finished her career at Squadron Line Elementary School. In that she was a compassionate, dedicated, hardworking teacher that I think if she knew the amount of attention that this gift would receive, she'd be astonished by it. And I think that we are extremely fortunate to receive a gift of this amount, certainly. And also, I think it's equally as important that we step back and take pause, so to speak, and are very thoughtful about how we utilize these funds to not only benefit the students, the Simsbury Public Schools, but also to properly honor Miss McGowan's legacy. So one suggestion I would have after approval of the gift is that we would come back, administration, at a later date with some suggestions relative to possible ways that we could honor her gift. In conversations with Attorney George, I think that it's important to recognize that we both firmly agree that this should be something that's sustainable, something that will honor her in a very respectful way. And I know that we'll be dedicated to doing that. So with that, I would ask the board move the proposed gift forward. So if somebody
I'll
could-
move that the proposed gift of $479,715.41 to the Simsbury Public Schools from the Kathleen McGowan Revocable Trust be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
And I think, you know, recent news stories and the request, Lou, I'm sure you continue to get them. We had a request from Inside Edition today, and they continue to come. So we'll have to work our way through that. But in doing some research, this is certainly the largest gift, at least in the last 30 years. I called Dave Holden up at the Cape to check that out with him. And certainly he said that he could remember. And again, we're extremely fortunate. But Lou, if you'd be willing to say a few words, because you were involved with the story from the start.
Sure, thank you. I want to thank you for allowing me to appear on behalf of Kathleen McGowan on this night, and it is truly an inspirational story. I'm from the law firm Hassett and George, and we've represented her for a number of years. She came in probably 4 or 5 years ago and wanted to have someone help her with her affairs and finances, and had a neighbor come, and as we started to look at what she wanted to do, we gathered some information, and she knew she had some money, but no real idea of some of the investments and some of the things that she's maintained for a number of years, and how much that was. And as we gathered it, we then went to her and said, do you really understand how much you have? And at that point, she wasn't really sure. She started looking, well, maybe I don't, because of the stocks, the investments that she hadn't looked at. And the reason is because, not that she didn't know, that wasn't a priority of hers. She lived a very humble, modest life. She didn't need those funds. They were saved. For the investment people in the room, the buy and hold strategy is absolutely exemplified in this manner, because she had stocks dating back to the 60s and 70s that had just grown and grown and grown. So it was interesting to see. And then she had war bonds from the 1940s that she just held, and as we did our due diligence, there's actually websites that allow you to find, going back to the 40s, the registration, and finding the amounts were astonishing that she had in Quaker Oat cans and different things. So she had the old-fashioned saving in the house, all the way to the more modern investments. She had a twin brother who passed away about a year before her. Her brother was worked for Prudential in financing, and he helped invest these items long ago. And he took care of it. She didn't really take care of those things. So we gathered it all and told her, where she was in terms of net worth. She had a very distinct plan. She came in with a piece of paper like this and had written down on that piece of paper what she wanted to do, and her intentions were very clear, and knew that she wanted to help the people and return the favors to people that had touched her and helped her in her life, and also the organizations that were a part of her life. She wanted to repay those, whether it be her church, the Board of Education, where she went to school, but she had a very, very distinct plan and thought through that, and obviously the town of Simsbury and the Board of Education was one of those where she worked for 30 some odd years. That being said, she wanted to make sure that in this gift that the board benefit from that, the community benefit from that, and the children benefit from it. And we would request that this gift be used in a manner that reflects those intentions and represents her and leaves a legacy in her name of the magnitude of the gift. And I'm sure that this board will accomplish that. Going through this, it was astonishing to me from the time she came in, and even realizing what she was worth and what she wanted to do with it was a good story, but never in a million years could we have ever imagined that it would get the recognition that it did. And I think it's a testament that in this day and age, people are really thirsty for a good story. And everyone that came forward just loved the story and what it represented, and taking a humble, modest individual who turned around and was repaying people that may have helped her along the way for no apparent reason other than out of the goodness of their heart, whether it be a neighbor helping her or someone else, and repaying the organizations, the good organizations that the schools where she went to school, churches, boards of education. So just a really, really good story. And knowing her, I think she would have been astonished, somewhat, I would say almost embarrassed by the publicity that something like this would garner, and they do still keep coming. I'm absolutely astonished by that, but it is a good story, so if that's what people need to hear, we're all in favor of doing that. So with that, I'm sure you will do an extremely fine job in following through on her intentions, and good luck with that. Thank you.
Lou, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to Exhibit 4, approval of Van Hop B Memorial Scholarship.
Lydia, I'll take this one. It's a, and I'm not sure, I don't believe there's a member of the McGee family here. I don't think. But this is actually a scholarship that was brought forward by 3 families. It's been vetted through the scholarship committee at Simsbury High School, and Neil Sullivan and Jane Ellen Peregrine, the director of school counseling. The families that established this is in the memory of John Jack Bannon, who is a longtime Simsbury teacher and who we know quite well through his turkey trot. He passed away in 2013. A Simsbury farmer, Walter Hoppy, and members of the McGee family who resided in Simsbury for over 30 years and whose children attended Simsbury Public Schools. So this is the scholarship fund in the amount of $5,000, and it will be one $500 scholarship beginning with the class of 2014. And it will be given until the fund is depleted. The scholarship will be awarded to one student with an interest in a blue-collar job, such as farming, the trades, or something such as that. Qualifications are financial need, community volunteerism, and interests and sports. And the recipient of this particular scholarship will be chosen by the McGee family on awards night in May. And I would ask the board that they accept this scholarship.
Very good. Do I hear a motion?
I move that the Board of Ed approve the Ben Hopkey Memorial Scholarship to be dispersed beginning in 2014.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. All right, we are now on to, and we're very grateful for the families.
That was very generous.
Very, very generous. So, your students will definitely benefit. Thank you. We are now on to the approval of the Patricia H. Peters Memorial Scholarship Exhibit 5.
Yes, thank you, Lydia. I'm really honored to have an opportunity tonight to present the board with a scholarship, the Patricia H. Peters Memorial Scholarship. Jim, welcome. It's really nice to see you. Patty Lou, of course, 33 years with the school district. We miss Patty Lou greatly. But what I wanted to share tonight is that her legacy lives on with us. And the example she set for our students, for adults, for parents through interaction, and most importantly for kids, lives on and will continue to live on. And that's the spirit that I take from this scholarship this evening. And Jim, thanks so much for joining us. It's an extremely generous scholarship proposal. The scholarship is in the amount of $2,000 to be awarded annually to 2 successful applicants, beginning with the class of 2014. As Aaron talked about, we have a process to vet this. This has been reviewed by Neil Sullivan, our principal at the high school, as well as the guidance department. The total amount of the scholarship at this point is $20,000, and subsequent annual scholarships may be awarded as long as the available funds permit. And the scholarship is to go to students who are interested interested in pursuing something involved with education. And that's certainly fitting. And I think overall to step back as a board and think about where we are tonight and the things we've had a chance to talk about, the McGowan gift, the scholarships, and now Patty Lou's legacy. And we talk about the fact that great organizations are built from great people. And I think it's important to recognize that that's where we are tonight, and we have a lot of evidence of that. And I would ask the board at this point to make a motion to approve this wonderful scholarship.
Very good. Do I hear a motion?
Move that the Board of Education approve the Patricia H. Peters Memorial Scholarship to be dispersed beginning 2014.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Jim, did you want to say anything? I don't want to put you on the spot, but it's great to see you, and thank you for coming tonight. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, moving on to Exhibit 6. We have the approval of the collective bargaining unit agreement between Simsbury Board of Education and National Association of Municipal Employees.
Going to go to Burke on this one.
Okay. I guess just to start off, this is the last of a cycle. Very
Take a deep breath. That's
pleased to have before you for consideration this evening. I want to thank my colleague Suhan Raklanti for all of her assistance in the process, and of course the personnel and negotiations subcommittee. I think back about a year or so ago when we set goals, and I think we did really well in setting out the goals, and I think we were able to meet them. This stage contract is the last of our non-certified groups, and it would mean that all new hires will be in a defined contribution plan, and it also continues the trend that those staff who are in a defined benefit pension plan will help to bear more of the cost of those plans. And I think with that sort of preface, I guess I would turn it over to Mike if there are any comments.
Well, I think I summarized it pretty well. It's a straightforward contract, and I think, as you said, we did quite well, consistent with the settlements that we achieved in other contracts.
So just to give a little bit of the background for the benefit of the public, the general wage for this contract is, in the first year, this is retroactive to last July 1st, is at 2.5%. In year 2, it's 2.25%. In year 3, it's 2%. There's also some step movement, and the value of that is 0.46% in year 1, 0.56% in year 2, and 0.56% in year 3. As I referenced earlier, the contribution for employees in a defined pension plan goes from 2% to year 3, it increases to 4.5%. And that is, again, right in line with where we were looking to be when we compared ourselves after the consultant's report about a year and a half ago, that the average was between 4 and 5% of other groups that we had looked at. So we feel like we've made very good strides there, and we'd like to recommend your formal ratification of this contract. If there are other questions about the aspects of it that I've outlined, more than happy to answer those questions. Burke, just roughly, how many folks are in this bargaining unit?
Roughly 40, roughly about $2.2 million.
Thank you.
Right. Very good.
Motion? Move that the Board of Education ratify the proposed changes in the collective bargaining agreement between the Simsbury Board of Education and the National Association of Municipal Employees Local R1-260 for the period July 1, 2013 through June 30th, 2016.
Do I hear a second? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you all for your hard work.
All right.
Kirk and Sue, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We are now on to information and reports, and Exhibit 7, elementary school reports.
Great. I'm going to turn this over to Aaron. This is we have modeled these presentations a little bit after what Neil has done with his high school report, thinking that it's equally important to discuss the ongoing work at the different levels. So we have the elementary crew here tonight, represented by Scott and Meg. So
All right.
we have everybody here.
I do want to
Yes,
recognize, appreciate all the administrators, but I do want to recognize Betsy Gonzalez, Kevin Cazzetta, Edie Balkin, Grace Morris, Maggie Seidel, Scott and Meg Evans, Scott Baker, Meg Evans, and I have two practitioners, teachers, that are going to help me with the presentation tonight as well.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out.
That's great. So tonight's presentation, as Matt said, is really our third. We did the high school, the middle school, and now it's the elementary presentation. And so what we've divided it into three sections, just as we've done before. I'll review the indicators of success with you. We did that back in September. It has been a little bit of time, so I'll draw your attention back to our elementary performance. We will then do a piece on the Common Core State Standards with Beth Hennessy and Lori Martinson, and we'll talk with them in a few minutes. And then Scott Baker and Meg Evans will come to the table and give the principal's report. So the indicators of success, I'll just remind you that we, again, have very strong performance at our elementary levels in grades 3, 4, 5, and 6. What we are looking at, and the two areas that somewhat drew our attention, obviously, was the grade 3 reading score that we had. I spoke about that, Betsy and I spoke about that back in September with you, and both Scott and Meg will talk about that further in the presentation. And the other area that was slightly down that drew our attention was the 4th grade math, but we are incorporating the new Common Core aligned curriculum in 4th grade this year, so we're hopeful of some higher results, although 80% is a strong performance for 4th grade. This is also a visual that gives you a sense of how we perform. Simsbury is in the blue. Our Connecticut, obviously, is the red with similar trend lines, and our DIRG performance is in the green. The different district reference groups that are similar districts as us. So you can see, again, the 4th grade math and the 3rd grade reading. So what I wanted to do with the Common Core State Standards and with our Smarter Balanced Assessment presentation tonight is let you hear from, as I said, two practitioners that are working directly with teachers. And tonight I've invited Beth Hennessy, who's a language arts consultant from Central School. She also spent a lot of time at Squadron Line as a language arts consultant. And Lori Martinson, who is a new instructional coach that we have, mathematics coach at the elementary level. And Lori was a longtime teacher at Latimer Lane, 4th and 5th grade at Latimer Lane. And so both of them are here to give you some of their experience. So we're going to move right into the literacy aspect of it. So Beth, I'll pass it off to you.
Sure. Good evening. As you've heard, the Common Core State Standards have 3 major shifts in English language arts that impact us at the elementary level as well. In my example tonight, we'll highlight how we've used those shifts to align some of our curriculum, especially in the nonfiction reading and writing units. Due to the alignment work, we're really pleased that students now have more practice reading complex nonfiction text. There's a emphasis on the academic vocabulary within the text, and there's opportunities for reading, writing, and speaking that's also grounded in the text. And we're also providing more opportunities for students to read and reread nonfiction text, go back and reference materials, and also go into some digital text as well through our library media centers. We have some wonderful databases that students are accessing. The shifts in writing have moved from the 2 forms that we had previously, the expository and the narrative, to 3 shifts. As you can see in 3rd through 5th grade, the emphasis is on the opinion writing, informational writing, and narrative writing. And when you move into our 6th grade in the elementary school, the opinion writing grows into the argumentative writing, and the informational writing expands into explanatory writing as well, and there's also some narrative writing involved. The standards lay a very clear progression of skills within each writing genre, where opinion writings, for example, grows from kindergarten, where students are writing about maybe what their favorite book is and giving some reasons why it's their favorite book, to a 3rd grade piece where students are writing opinion pieces about a topic of their choice, again, adding some details and facts to support that, growing all the way up to 6th grade, where students are doing some research on a topic that's passionate to them. for example, should students have cell phones, and adolescents have cell phones. And they're using their research skills to write argument-based essays where they're really supporting what their claim is. It's been some exciting work that we've seen out of our 6th grade already. Putting these standards in action, we're really fortunate that there's a language arts consultant at the building at every single elementary school. We are able to provide layered support through participating in weekly professional learning community meetings. We also are able to do daily classroom coaching. We are able to pull teachers together during building-based professional development time. And we also are then, on our district professional development days, able to put a whole grade level together in order to give the teachers the support they need as we move into the Common Core State Standards and understand how we're changing some of our units to align to the Common Core State Standards. The circles in this graph represent the standards that we are able to address in a unit of study. For example, this nonfiction unit of study, we were able to add a nonfiction unit of study into the first third of the school year. So the rest of the 2/3 of the school year, we're able to repeat and reinforce the skills from this nonfiction reading unit or writing unit in other content areas. I'm just going to touch upon the circles to give you a few examples. For example, for writing, reading for information in 3rd grade, their skills are about determining what's important in a text, identifying the main ideas and details, and really asking questions about what they're reading. So there's a lot of skill-based instruction. At the same time, because of the focus on the academic language, which is where the vocabulary comes into play, there's much more of an emphasis on the vocabulary, where students are learning about a topic in depth, and teachers are teaching skills on how to use those words in context and the use of domain-specific vocabulary. For studying the moon, they're really digging into eclipse, lunar, atmosphere, and so forth, and really teaching students how to use that vocabulary also in speaking and listening. One of the shifts we've made this year is to add the writing for information into a unit of study. So students, as they're reading informational text, they're also writing informational text. And we're able to use the writing that authors are using as models for students to reference as now they're writing pieces that are informative pieces in writing workshop. The listening and speaking standards, those are not new to us. There's not many shifts in those in the Common Core standards compared to the standards we had from the State Department previously. And fortunately, our reading and writing workshop has collaborative conversations built into our model, where students are able to have partnership conversations, or they're able to meet in small groups to really reinforce the speaking and listening skills. A small shift in the speaking and listening is we're really teaching students how to listen and evaluate the point of view of the speaker. It's one of the big shifts. Research and media skills are not necessarily a standalone separate standard. They're actually embedded into the standards. But it's important to note, because of the nonfiction reading and writing, students are doing a lot more what we call on-the-run research, kind of what we do as adults, where you go to the internet to find a piece of information and you go back to your text and use it to support your writing, or you use it to support your understanding about a topic. And teachers have been really receptive to having this integration of the reading and writing units coming together. And under Betsy's guidance, we're able to have a very thoughtful plan in place as we integrate this work in language arts.
Thank you. Okay, Lori's going to speak to us about mathematics.
Lori, can you move the microphone to you for better?
There you go.
Thank you.
The components of the Common Core State Standards for math have two different facets: the actual content as well as the math practices. And as a coach, both of those things really drive my work. With respect to the content, most of the content has remained the same. The shifts are really in the units and where they are in the different grade levels. There is one exception, and that's grade 5, where there's been some significant changes, but that's not unique to Simsbury. That's a nationwide change. So my work centers on helping teachers with their understanding and their capacity, as well as their comfort level, because they have to teach some new things that they haven't had at their grade level before. The focus is really on conceptual understanding rather than procedural understanding. By that I mean that students really, we're not teaching them to cross multiply when they're looking at their fractions. Rather, we're looking at an area model or the number line to help them really have a deeper understanding of what they know about fractions. The second part of the standards have to do with the math practices. There are 8 math practices, and they are very much interdependent. It's important to note that although these standards are new, they're not new to us because they've been naturally embedded in our investigations program that we've been using for some time. So my job is to really enhance these standards in the classroom. I work closely with teachers that are new to grade level to help them bring these standards to life in their everyday math. A couple of examples of how I might do that. When students are doing their math work in their notebooks, we might put a piece of work under the Elmo and then ask other students to actually explain the thought process of the author of the work. So they need to actually construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. Another example might be where I am modeling for a teacher questioning strategies. The teacher can then use those strategies to help children make sense of problems and persevere when solving them. So none of these are used in isolation. Even when you are trying to look at someone else's work, you're looking at their attention to precision, you're looking at the models that they have used, and all of these standards go hand in hand. You can see that the standards are broken up into 3 different parts, with the end goal being that we want fluent algebraic thinking. With respect to the elementary level, our goal is that by the end of 5th grade, students have a solid foundational understanding of their math and numbers and operation. The emphasis is really on depth versus breadth of concepts. And I'll give you a fraction example because that's a key part of the elementary level. In grade 3, children are learning that a fraction is part of a whole. As they progress to 4th grade, they're looking at equivalent fractions and adding and subtracting fractions with like numbers. You move on to 5th grade and they're adding and subtracting with unlike denominators, but then they're also multiplying and dividing fractions, which is something completely new for them. And again, I want to remind you that it's going back to a conceptual understanding and not a procedural.
Is that the new part that you said was, you said there was a new part for the 5th grade?
That's one of the biggest parts. Yes, one of the biggest shifts. So my work as a coach is really to influence the classroom. And by that I mean to influence the teacher practice as well as the students. So when I think of my work just in the last week, right now grade 4 is in the midst of teaching angles and how to measure angles. They've never done it before. I'm team teaching with a teacher, which means that we are planning lessons together. We will then co-teach collaboratively. We each own a different part of the lesson, yet we have ownership of all of the student learning in the classroom and do that together. After we've taught, we're then meeting again to reflect and look at student work. Based upon what we're seeing, we're then planning our next steps, and it's a continuous cycle. Another example would be that I come into classrooms where teachers are teaching. I may suggest how you can strategically take certain examples of student work to facilitate a strong discussion in the class, or how you can circle around the room and really notice key mathematical points that you're looking for to develop your strategy groups right on the spot. There are other teachers that are looking for resources, so it's my job to get those resources, get them to them timely, and make sure that they meet the teacher's needs. So that's my work in the classroom.
Yes.
Sure. You know, I mean, it's an obvious thought, but I think it's one that we need to continue to talk about publicly and consider as a board, and that is how we manage the change process, and that we're faced with so many degrees of change. And if you think about the presentation thus far, the changes for administrators, the changes for teachers, and then the changes for students. We have change at every level. So, Lori's position is an example of something that the board advocated for last year when we did our budget planning under the platform of how do we kind of position ourselves and get poised to respond to the reform. And I think early indications are that these positions are extremely valuable in helping us manage the change process. And as we plan for another budget, it will be important to consider those resources again when we talk about, declines in enrollment. Does not mean we necessarily eliminate things that we just advocated for, but where can we be strategic with our resources. So, it's just a theme that at the upper administrative level we continue to think about. It's a theme I want to reiterate with the board that it's important that we continue to think about, that it's multifaceted change, and we need to continue to think about how we align and realign our resources to support students in the classroom.
It's so much change coming from the state level, and the only people that it truly affects are the students. And we really have to be very mindful of how we can support them as best we can.
Right.
Because it's scary how fast the change and what they're expecting these kids to go through is a lot, and we can't lose any of them.
Right.
We can't lose one of them in the transition.
On that note, Beth, I had a question for you. I'm wondering, you're talking about the reading shifts. How are the kids, and this is kind of from my parent hat, I had struggling readers in 3rd grade. How are those struggling readers kind of handling these demands that we're putting on them at this point? Are you?
Fortunately, we have expanded our Simsbury Reading Intervention Program. So we're now having certified reading teachers teach students who need support from kindergarten all the way up to 6th grade. So we don't lose anybody. We're still able to provide that type of support in the classroom. And we're not just doing professional development on a unit of study. We do professional development on how you teach to these standards as well. So it's not just on unit development, but how do you get at some of these skills and standards for teachers?
Right. Okay. Because that's what and then you mentioned you revisit units, like you get your nonfiction in. Do you revisit? Is it the same unit, so especially at the younger grades? So are you talking about the same topic, or are you revisiting the same tasks later in the year? I was just wondering.
Yeah, we're reinforcing the same skills and strategies in a different content area, maybe in science and social studies or in a different unit of study. So it's not the same unit of study, but the skills are transferable into a different topic.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's one of the powerful pieces with these standards is that they cut across all of the disciplines. And so having the opportunity for the nonfiction strategies and skills introduced at the first third of the year, as Beth talked about, it gets recycled and through science and or social studies and assessed along the way. And there's that progression. Nonfiction goes from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. So it's that common understanding of that skill. So having both, with the language arts consultants have been in place for a long time, but their ability to continue to coach, and I think that statement that Beth just made about helping teachers teach the content is the critical aspect of it. And Lori, in her new role, is one person that cuts across our 5 schools to help our math teachers. And so her focus, it's a big job that Lori has right now, and she's very organized, I have to tell you. But she can't get to everyone. She just can't. And her focus has been a lot on 5th grade. And 4th grade. And those are, we identify the areas that we need to spend more amount of time with, and the new teachers, helping them navigate through the teaching as well.
Just want to add, we tag team a little bit. So there's some new nonfiction units being implemented and integrated right now, and we've decided to move those up a little bit because we know that there's more new math coming for 5th grade in the spring. So we're trying to stagger it for teachers so it's
not all new all the time.
At the same time.
Well, for teachers and for children.
Yeah, right.
That's helpful.
Lori, how are the 5th grade kids reacting to the shift? Are they?
They're actually embracing it. They feel like big kids.
Okay.
They want to do the things that their older brothers or sisters have done, and some of the work, it's in your approach. We need to work on orders of operation this year, and before we really looked at parentheses and brackets, We put it more in a foundational understanding. I love to shop, so we're thinking about if you go to the store and you buy 2 pair of jeans at $15 each and 2 shirts at $20 each, and you have a $15 off coupon, and they really take that and turn it into orders of operation.
Okay, great.
The other nice piece of having all of the administrators here is the partnership between the language arts consultants or the coaches and the regular meetings that take place has been, I think, extremely powerful. Likewise at the middle school with the coaches that we have at the middle school and the high school. So we've had some great conversations. Last Friday we had a coaches network meeting, and we had about 12 people around the table with Betsy and I, and it was very powerful to bring those people together that are supporting the teachers in the district to really employ the teaching strategies that we think are going to have the best impact on student learning. So it's really been exciting work that we've been engaging in this year. So just to remind you before Beth and Lori leave the table that the Smarter Balanced Assessment, we'll be doing the pilot in the spring. We'll be doing it in March. We're going to separate the secondary assessment and the elementary assessment. So we'll start with secondary and then pick up with the elementary and hopefully have it completed by April vacation. And the operational test, the real test, will come in spring of 2015. At that point. So I hope that over the course of the 3 presentations, if I remind you, the high school was around the differences between the testing formats and what it looks like. That was the high school report that we gave. At the middle level, we talked about the teacher, that grid that I showed you, which was really teacher talk. And that's exactly what Kate Roberts is coming to do tomorrow, to really talk about that kind of work. And then to actually see the coaches that are working with teachers and the impact that it has on students. So hopefully you were able to get a bigger, broader picture of how we're working with the Common Core state standards.
Great.
Thank you.
And I think just when I'm looking at this slide here, coaching in action, and I think to piggyback on what you said about the positions that were very hard, in particular the coaching positions. And Lori, you had mentioned coaching in action. For me, you had mentioned how you influence the classroom, how you team teach, ownership of classroom, facilitate, and you notice the key strategies that the students are doing. That right then and there is the reason why we work so hard at this level to put these positions in, these coaching positions in, to help and assist, in particular with what's coming down with the Common Core, as you know. So.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll have Scott Baker and Meg Evans, and I don't know, I couldn't bring everyone to the table, so I think we figured out how to get 2 of them to the table. But I again appreciate everyone being here tonight because it's an important presentation for all of our elementary principals and Betsy Gonzalez as well.
And so it's a pleasure to be here on behalf of the elementary team. It really is. It's such nice to be able to work. Although we have 5 schools, that there's a lot of commonality and that we're able to support each other in the work. So this really is a reflection of all 5 schools. And when we were kicking it off, trying to think of how do you combine 5 schools' missions to really say what it's about, Scott and I did a little experiment. And Wordle is a program where you can input text and it comes off with a graphic. And the larger the words are, it means they're represented the most in the text, and the smaller the words are, it means that they're there the least. And so we put in the mission statements of the 5 elementary schools and wanted to take a look to see what it told us, and we were really pleased at the message that is sent, that we are about learning and students and community and the environment and diversity, and that's who we are. And so I think that really kind of said it all.
Scott must have done this because I see Tara.
There's
a funny story about that. We typed it in lots and lots of times to see what it would look like. We a lot of drink. I mean, we made it equal. There are equal numbers.
But I think really what that says to us is that we're all about the whole child, and that we really have success because of the partnership that we have between schools and families, and that we couldn't do it alone. And how we get our success is really based in that process of continuous improvement, where we set goals, we put action plans in place, we gather data, we see how we're doing, and then we reflect the process. And so that's what tonight is about.
And if the board remembers as well, we have been working on our character ed programs, and the commonality of that is that 11 characteristics of character education, which is the foundation or the basis for the work that we have done over time.
So our first school goal is having a highly effective teacher in every classroom. In Simsbury, we believe that every child deserves a highly effective teacher and that every teacher deserves to work in a professional community. And so that work has begun well before any of these state reforms have come about. And the work started as far as taking a look at the teaching standards and making revisions. And that really set us up for success with the new teacher evaluation system, because we were able to then adopt the system to those standards. So it was something that teachers knew and are comfortable with and what we believe in. And so that has been really helpful in this transition. So at this point, all teachers have completed a PGP, and all teachers have had a in-depth conversation with an administrator about two things. One is about the teaching standards and how they want to improve their skill set, and the second piece is taking a look at student growth. So we're really excited about that, and our observations have begun. And so what we are doing right now is taking a look at how we prepare for the mid-year meetings. Just like that cycle of continuous improvement, we'll be taking a look at the plans that were set by teachers at the mid-year and to see how things are going. And so there will be some professional development in January for teachers so that we can prepare for those meetings. And then our second elementary school goal is having all students reading by the end of grade 3. And we take data on that as well throughout the year. So we just completed our fall assessments. And so this gives us information about students who are on track to meet that end of the year goal. And there were two main assessments that we're taking a look at in grade 3. One is the DRP, which is a standardized test, and it takes a look at some surface level comprehension. Students have to read passages and be able to fill in the blanks of some missing words from a word bank. And the other measure is our DRA2 assessment, and where students have to read passages, and then will either have to retell what they have read, or they might have to answer some comprehension questions, or as they get into the higher levels, they have to respond to text and writing. And what you'll see is that we tend to perform slightly better on the internal DRA2 measures than we do on the standardized measures. And so that has just been reflective as it's the same with our CMT data. And so it just makes us kind of pause and say, what's going on? Why do we have this gap between our internal assessments and some state assessments? And so we're going to take a little deeper look at that. And we came together and kind of came up with our problem of practices. How do we take a look at this? And it's really about how do we sustain best practices in our K-3 literacy program for all students. And I think that was a loud and clear message that we've heard throughout the evening, is that we really want all students to be successful. So administrators came together and principals kind of looked at the data and came up with some ideas. Principals met with grade level teams in kindergarten, first, second, and third grade levels, looked at the data, came up with some themes. And then we had a teacher-led focus group, again, from each of the grade levels from all the schools to come together, take a look at the data, see some themes. And I think the good news is that a lot of the themes were the same, so that's always exciting. And one of the other things is that we have a lot of good things that are in place that we want to make sure that we keep in place as we continue to move our work. And so you've heard a lot about them, our reading and workshop model, making sure that we're having our work focused on the Common Core. Word study is a foundation piece where students learn the rules of phonics and how to spell and decode words. And one of the things that I think makes Simsbury unique is that we really believe in having students have a love of learning, and we want to make sure that we keep that despite all the rapid changes. And certainly the PLC time is that time for teachers to get together and get support from one another as we move forward through instruction. So although we certainly had some areas of strength, we also had some areas that we thought we might need to take a look at and re-examine a little bit more closely. And so these are kind of the themes and the bullet areas that we want to take a closer look at. So for example, when you've heard about the Common Core, you hear about integrating things, that it's not just reading, writing, science, social studies, but you're doing all of those skills in all the subject areas. So that's something that we want to take a look at in our balanced literacy program. Are we doing enough of that? Can we do that a little bit more? Another example might be in the area of assessment, to take a look to say, again, why is that gap between our district assessments and some state assessments, and do we need to take a closer look at the instruments that we're using and the things that we're measuring? So we want to take a close look at that at each one of these areas. But again, I think that all came back to the table is we want to make sure that we don't throw out the good things that we're doing when we're taking a look and making these tweaks. That because although there is this dip in 3rd grade, we do really well in 4th, 5th, and especially once you get up into 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And some of that work is because of the foundational skills that are built upon in the K-3 program. So we want to make sure that we are keeping all of those good things in place while certainly refining some of our practices to take us to the next level. So our 3rd goal at the elementary level is in writing, and so all students are writing on grade level by the end of grade 6. And so there's 2 ways that you can take a look at student writing. One is kind of like on the top is where you would break writing down into the traits of writing. So for example, is a piece focused? Is it organized? Does a student provide elaboration? Is there a fluency to it? Can you hear a student's voice? And that's a rubric that we use district-wide when we analyze student work. And another way to take a look at it is a holistic approach. How is your, kind of like on the CMTs, you're either going to get a passing grade, you met the mark, or you don't. And we've certainly looked at writing in each of those ways, but I think one of the exciting things about the new teacher evaluation system is now we're kind of combining the two in when we've set our student goals, is because certainly you want to be focused in on a particular trait. So if students are having a weakness in elaboration, we want to put the supports in elaboration, but you can't lose sight that you also have to pay attention to those other areas. And so I think that was some exciting conversations that we had this year that were a little bit new and different. And then certainly the mathematics, like you heard Lori talk about earlier, that we are aligning it with the Common Core. And in addition to having that deeper understanding of the conceptual concepts, we're also focusing on fact fluency, that it's important that students know their facts, because you can't perform those higher level skills if you don't know your facts. And so that's also been an area of focus for this year. And again, we just can't thank the board enough for that math coach position, because although she's one person, she's had a tremendous impact of support, as well as our language arts consultants. And I think that that's something that we need to continue to do.
Thank you, Meg. I'm going to give an overview of a number of the things that are going on at the elementary level. And the first being, we've talked quite a bit about Common Core tonight, but want to give you an overview state of what's going on in the elementary world with Common Core. And one thing, I do a lot of reading, and a recent article I read is, how come just now people are talking about the Common Core? They've been adopted for a long time. And my theory is that the test is on our doorstep. Just like you don't think about taxes right now, but in a couple months, it will be on the forefront of our minds. And so, when they did a meta-analysis of the number of times the word Common Core appeared in newspapers, it was only in 3 years ago. Common Core was being adopted by states all over the place, and it was maybe seen 40 or 50 times in newspapers across the United States, and now it's thousands. That wasn't the case in Simsbury. And so my first bullet point in talking about the curriculum alignment, I want to just publicly recognize Betsy Gonzalez for having the foresight to start to integrate these units or these skills into our units a long time ago, so that our teachers aren't facing down full-scale changes in curriculum all this year as we are panicked to get ready for the test. There's been a really thought-out process. I think Aaron's I was at a board meeting last year where Aaron brought a picture of the chart, the color chart with the units and how they are, and a lot of thought's gone into not loading up all math with one grade level at a time, but really piecing together the units. So we're still involved in a multi-year process to align our curriculum to the Common Core. I think the nonfiction unit that Beth spoke about, that unit is in place in all grade levels, and I think the reason being behind that is that it's a high leveraged unit, because those skills are now being integrated into our content areas. Math, as you know, 5th grade is one of the flashpoints that we're at right now, and so the 5th grade teachers deserve a lot of props for taking that on, and they're doing a really nice job with it with Lori's help. And the science and social studies units are really exciting, the revisions that are happening to them, because we're really embedding a lot of these skills with within them. And so it's a more coherent program for our students as we're going through. So in terms of the curriculum, that's where we're at. With professional development on November 6th, we had a full, every single principal presented again on the Common Core, the important standards. And then the teachers actually, for the first time, got to take the test of their grade level. So we sat them down and they took the online test, and with a notebook next to them, really were jotting down, not necessarily like the question items, because that sample test that is online and anyone can go take a look at it. It's just a sampling of the types of questions that would be on the test and the format of the questions. But teachers are already have, bullet lists of, okay, this kind of format, we have to design our district assessments and our classroom assessments to angle this way. And the problem that Lori talked about with the shopping trip is like a perfect example of a Common Core type question. And so those are the kinds of questions that teachers now are going back and redesigning their classroom assessments to match with. And then another really important thing, just like I said with the newspapers, the principals have heard from the parents more this year, questions about the Common Core because it's more in the media. And so we've responded by having parent education workshops in the evenings. I believe every elementary school, with the exception of Terrafil and Central, who are hosting a joint schools night in January, have had sessions where we've had parents come to meetings, ask questions. I know Matt attended one at Squadron Line, and I believe they've been really informative evenings, so we'll continue that dialogue through newsletters and other forums to make sure that parents know what they can do, because as everyone knows, one of the strongest pieces of our education is a partnership we have with parents. And so the work they do at home with the students is equally as important as what's happening at the school as well. The next piece I'd like to talk about are our professional learning communities, and this is an initiative that began in the district a number of years ago, and this is one of our core beliefs as a district, is this is how the work gets done. So we've talked a lot about goals tonight. Meg talked about our reading and our writing and our teacher practice goal. And this is how the work gets done when you come to the school. If you have a chance to sit in a professional learning community meeting, this is where each teacher has 1 hour of collaborative planning. Content area teacher has an hour of collaborative planning per week. You hear a lot about the international comparisons of what's different between United States teachers and, say, the teachers in Finland. And one of the huge differences it screams is planning time. Time to plan together in order to design instruction for all students. And so this is something that we hold very near and dear to our hearts. Some examples of what teachers are engaged in, really long-term work. They're not just sitting at the table grading papers or that sort of thing, but they are talking about how to improve teaching practices within a unit. They are talking about the delivery of instruction from any particular unit that they're doing. They're thinking about small groups of students and how to target their instruction to their needs. And the graphic on the side I included as how we look at professional learning communities, or PLCs, at the elementary level. This was about 2 years ago. We had a consultant in one of our summers, and they were scribbling up on a chart paper of like how we should go through this process. And I was next door to one of my retired friends and had my laptop. Mr. Peralt and I were laughing about the presentation and how could we make it, because it was so dry and academic, how could we make it look elementary? And the two of us, in the span of about 15 minutes, made a little circular graph that was really boring on a piece of chart paper into a tiger jumping with a really neat acronym, because we love acronyms. So this is our Tigger graph. And to walk you through it just really quickly, at the PLCs, this is what you'll see some part of if you ever saw one. Teachers taking a look at data, whether or not it might be our internal data or a particular student assessment that you're doing. They identify a focus in which to work on. They research strategies. So you might see a book out that is talking about how do you teach these particular strategies. They select it, they learn it, they apply it in the classroom, they evaluate the results back at a future meeting, and then they monitor the students' progress through it and then come right back at it again. So that's the process that we see, and of course with the elementary school you have to have a little cartoon in it. That work works for about 90% of our students. When we look at the regular education program that we have with a teacher, a classroom, and a curriculum. Now there are students that, as Susan brought up, where that's not doing it. That's not enough. And so we have several support systems in which to help students through. And one of the pieces that Beth had talked about that we're really proud about is that we now have a certified reading teacher addressing the reading needs of our grades 4 through 6 students. So K-6, we have a full comprehensive reading intervention program, and we're really happy about that. It's hard to believe we're only in the 3rd year of implementation of our Simsbury Reading Intervention Program. And those of you in the business world know that it takes many years to implement something, and I feel like this year right now we're really hitting our stride in grades K-3 with our intervention program, with scheduling and having the right people on the bus and such. And so we're proud of this program. I think it's doing a nice job with our readers. We'll move to math very quickly, and the math intervention program is a little different in that this program identifies students who have had some difficulties within a particular unit. And as you know from your own math background, if you struggled ever, the teacher taught a unit on fractions, you didn't quite get it, but now we're on to geometry. And maybe next year you'll get fractions. But not so with our program, because the math intervention program, what it does is takes a look at the students who might have had trouble with a unit, and then we'll be able to bolster the skills as the class can still move on. We're a number of years into a new process that was identified a long time ago, about 7 years ago, called the SIT process, and this is our response to intervention. And every school now has a school-based team. On that team is a principal, a psychologist, a regular education teacher, and special education teacher. And what happens is if there's a student who is experiencing some difficulties, whether it might be academic, behaviorally, socially, the student will be brought up to the team. And this team designs interventions for that child to try to see if we can address that. And very frequently, we do address it right at that level with the team, and we monitor the progress throughout the year. On the occasions that we have put together many interventions and we're still not seeing the progress that we'd like, that's when a referral to special education occurs. And we have a strong special education program, which you're going to hear a lot more about tonight. So I won't elaborate too much more there, except for one high point is the coordination that we have between special education and the Simsbury reading program. Has changed the face of how we service reading needs of kids. And so the SRIP program and the special ed program collaborate to address the reading goals of our students. Something we are very proud of in our elementary schools is our school climate and culture. It's something we spend a great deal of time on, whether it's the feet at Terriffill School, the Tooten Hills train, the Squadron Line Sun, and so on. Those are just the identities that our schools have. But every school, through its climate and culture and character education programs, has created a cohesive identity where kids can call their school their own. As Erin mentioned, all of our programs, while have different feels, align to the 11 character traits or character principles in the Character Education Partnership. And last year, just some quick accomplishments, we put together, you saw a report from Mrs. Lemke last year on our school climate and culture survey that we did. We surveyed 3rd and 6th grade parents at the elementary level to take a look at our practices and identify areas of focus, and not to cite a lot of statistics tonight, but our marks came very high from all 3 of those groups of people. On our next slide. Just a summary of some recent highlights in our schools I thought would be important. Not that anyone could have missed, there was a 100-year celebration at Central School. And
do you have the sign, Edie?
The sign is not far away, I'm sure.
We did get Harry Smith with the sign.
So yes, the 100-year even made the national news. But at Latimer Lane School, they've done some really neat stuff with walking and biking to school. It's been a huge success. At Squadron Line, they've sent kids internationally traveling with the Kids Lit Contest 2 years running. At Terrifield School, I'm very proud to say we've been named a School of Distinction for 2 years running now based on our CMT results. And you heard of the Cool School on Channel 3. Really, really neat thing. So there are great things going on at our elementary schools that I think all of us can be very proud of. To conclude, I want to bring us back to our mission statement just for a second, because we've talked a lot about change, we've talked a lot about reform, and you hear about teacher evaluation and the Common Core and this new test and all of that. And you know, those are all things we have to do. And I think it's really fitting that we started our presentation and end our presentation with the wordle of our mission statements. And just to take a look at it for a minute, because I think when you're faced with all of these things, this is the times mission statements are written for. It really is important to bring these out again. Sometimes I think they hang on the walls of the school and they're on the websites and they're not revisited too often. But if you look at the words that stand out to you, not all of them are teacher reform or testing. And so it's important that with all these changes that we're doing, we don't lose the core of what we believe in as a comprehensive elementary program, and make sure we pay attention to community and safety and lifelong learning and being valued in our environments and all of those words that you can see bold there that we believe in, because it's just, that's our anchor, and we need to stay true to that for our kids. So that concludes our report for tonight. And this is just a quick slide that we've been putting in front of all of our staff as we have been rolling out our teacher evaluation. And I think this is something we all, can believe in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Do you have, wait, questions?
Oh, questions, yes.
Questions.
Oh, we tried. We tried to quick getaway.
One of the things that you highlighted very early on was kind of the conversations and goal setting that you guys are going through. And one of the things that we've talked about it that I know we're all worried about is kind of the administrative burden. All those meetings and conversations, yes, they can be very effective and really, help people do what we just talked about, but they also can be administrative burden. How have they kind of practically rolled out kind of as your initial feedback?
I think the goal-setting meetings, it does take time, but again, the work that comes out of it is well worth it. I think what becomes interesting now is the observation of every teacher has a three reviews of practice in the year, as well as the 3 meetings where we set goals, review goals, and then evaluate the final progress. So it's game time now, but the verdict is still out as where we are. But that's certainly something that we're paying close attention to.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can just share one change in our evaluation process is that observations that we do, it's no longer are we limited to just going in and watching a teacher teach. In prior years, we have done observations in professional learning communities because that was a goal of ours. But now, for example, some of the observations I've done of teachers is like last week, it was parent conferences. So some of the conferences that I might have gotten invited to, I brought my notepad, and that was an observation because that's part of teaching too, communicating with parents. Another area is newsletters. So a teacher may have given me a number of their newsletters to take a look at and say, how's that tone that I'm setting with the parents? And so that can count for an observation too. So we're being creative too with how we do it. So it's not just trying to jam in a million observations in a day, but there are different ways that we're doing that as well. And I think that's giving feedback to teachers in areas that they really haven't received formal feedback or credit for, that they've done a great job with. So that's another difference in how we're doing things. Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a question. That's very good, your last statement, which you just said about being very creative in different ways in terms of feedback for teachers. Is this something that you're going to share with parents also? Do questions come up? What questions come up from the parents in particular about this?
Evaluation?
Well, do they come up at all on any of that? I'm just curious.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Except, there are a lot of educators who choose to to bring their children here because of the strong education. So in the hallway, I talked to a number of teachers from other districts or administrators from other districts, and they want to hear, how are you doing it, and how, because we have chosen to take a different path than the SEED model, and so we get, or I've gotten some jealous looks as I've described our own system, our electronic platform that Ed Lyman put together. I think is just. It's really good in comparison to, I think, what a number of other towns are using. So, that he should be publicly recognized for that as well, because when I've compared notes with some other principals, they want to look at it and see. So we should.
They can buy it.
That's right. So that really is. That's a conversation, but not from general. We haven't really gotten too much feedback. Common Core, though, a lot of questions about the Common Core.
Right.
And I think that sometimes it's important to be able to take a step back, because sometimes when you're enmeshed in the work, you get, so focused on what you're doing. And so sometimes to be able to step back and say, despite all this change, at least we have a strong curriculum. Yes, we're having to make tweaks to it, but we don't have to get rid of our teachers' college and adapt a new system.
Right.
There are some districts that are getting new reading programs, new writing programs, new math programs, and a new evaluation system, and new standards. And we didn't have to do that because people have been thoughtful, and we've been doing best practices all along. And so it's certainly pushing the work forward, but not necessarily to the degree that other people have had to do it. Right. Thank goodness.
I think that's a great point, and while we definitely have, and I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we have clear areas that we need to improve, and the data shows us that. I mean, we are poised pretty well, comparably from a curricular standpoint, a programmatic standpoint, and a resource standpoint, in many areas to do a good and thoughtful job with this change. But it's important to continue to talk about those things, as I said before. So that's great.
And keeping kids
point.
as the focus, I think,
Absolutely.
that has been the number one conversation that we've had to have with teachers, is as we're setting goals, and we're setting data-driven goals as well as standard-based goals, that it's all really about the students and how do we have all students be successful. So certainly those students who are able to meet curricular needs with minimal support, we want them to achieve and push them and enrich their experiences. And for those students who need more support, how do we put the support in place so that they can have progress as well? And so it's all about what's best for kids and not getting caught up in the ratings and the numbers and the percentages. Certainly that matters, but at the end of the day, as long as we're doing what's best for kids, that's what we're going to stand behind.
So I do think, Tom, probably by mid-February, we'll have a better sense. We will have completed our mid-year conversations with teachers, and we'll have a better sense of where we are with observations, the time. We already know it's an enormous amount of time for folks to have those beginning of the year conversations. We just created a format that we'll be bringing to the Professional Growth and Evaluation Committee tomorrow about a format for the mid-year conversations. So we're trying to be forward-thinking and thoughtful about it, but it is the work that they're doing every day in the buildings, and it is extremely time-consuming.
I'm just curious, for Meg, Kevin, and Grace, since you already had your parent meetings, how well attended were they? Did people leave feeling better about the Common Core situation? What are their questions answered? Are they walking out more confident in what we're doing, or are you finding there's still a lot of questions lingering? And
I had mine, my very first PTO meeting, beginning of the school year. And yes, it was well attended. They asked a lot of good questions, and I think they walked off feeling, much better about it.
Good.
It was very positive.
That's great.
I think I echo what Grace had said. I think it was well attended. They asked good questions. And I think then as they learn about it more, then they want to just know even more. So I think that's something too that we're thinking about as a district, to say, now that we've done a part one, do we need to come back and maybe do a part two, just so that we can keep that.
Give parents an avenue.
Because I think at that point they were focusing on the Common Core, but now they've heard more about smarter balance, and that's where
Raising more questions.
Still more questions.
We had about 35 at 2 parents show up. We really did try to separate the Common Core with the smarter balance, although through the conversation it was difficult not to embed some of that, even though we're going to go back in January and do another one on the smarter balance assessment, which they were encouraged to come back to hear more about, especially as we're getting closer to the field test. But A lot of the parents had sent me questions before, and I already kind of put my presentation together. So as I did the presentation, I tried to embed and answer their questions and acknowledge their questions so that they were being heard, and they raised some very good thoughts. They had some things they had heard on the internet, on Facebook pages, that we kind of had to, Erin was there as well, to reassure them that we were in a good place. We've been very proactive in the district, and they felt confident that we were, our kids were going to do well in the Smarter Balance. We have some things we need to work on, but we're in good shape.
So at the end of the Tooten conversation, we asked there was a good group of parents there in the sense of numbers, and so we asked them, this presentation that they heard tonight, would it be helpful to have some kind of forum in the spring to really bring together a little bit more understanding around the Common Core towards the end of the year? And they were very interested in something like that potentially happening in the spring at a district level.
I think that's great. I think that's a very good follow-up to have, is that you just said the communication is the key, and the right communication.
They were. It was, it was great. Both the squadron and I know Scott and Edie are going to do theirs in January, an evening in January, and I'll be at that one as well with them. So.
And Aaron, the other resource you have, because I've directed people to it, is what's been put on the
Correct.
website.
Right.
Yes.
And because I do find all the presentations, the taping of these meetings, very well done, including zoning right in on the PowerPoints. And I think the more we have stuff put up there, the
That's
better.
great.
It did take me a while to actually find it within,
Okay.
so, I think highlighting a little bit more. But
Okay.
I do think, I like the whole tone of the conversation that we have to interact, we have to reassure, we have to treat seriously the concerns people have, because it might not be a huge population, but there's definitely a population in town that has concerns. And Scott, you might have hit it right on the head, that the more that this is now in the public conscious, even though it's been out there for a while, people are now beginning to pay more attention to it and subsequently have more concerns that are being expressed. So.
And the homework's looking different.
Yeah.
If it's at the kitchen table, the homework's starting to look a little different.
Yeah.
And so I think that gets attention real quick.
Right. Yeah.
So.
If we did the Wordle, it would have gotten a lot bigger.
That's good. So there's one more. You're going to have one more, as you mentioned, one more parent session.
Yes, Central and Terriffill is going to be end of January.
End of January.
Yep,
So
Terriffill.
is this an opportunity, can we put on the website for those that didn't make the other parent sessions
They'd
to
be
attend?
more than welcome to come. Yep.
I think that would be very
I'll have
important.
our
to
PTOs
open.
will bake extra cookies.
Great,
All right,
very
thank
good.
you.
Great, thank you very much. And thank you,
Thanks to all.
principals, for coming out tonight. Greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Very good. All righty, we are now on to Exhibit 8, Special Education Program Report. Thank you, Helen, and if you can pull the microphone.
I do. Turn up my name tag so everybody knows who I am. It's a good thing. I always look forward to my yearly conversation, and it's especially rewarding to follow my colleagues and realize that a lot of what I think about, a lot of what we do in special education is embedded in all of the conversation you've already had today. So I will fill it up a little bit more with specifics about a special population of students and hopefully give you some new information. I always provide some data points that I'm responsible for reporting to the state and giving you some information about that as to how we are performing in our obligation to provide special education according to federal and state law and regulations.
Some difficulties with the first presentation I uploaded, so I deleted and uploaded a new one. If you can't access it, go out and go back in. You should be able to get one.
I noticed that. Thank you very much. Mine's working now. It wasn't before.
It's working okay? Okay. That's okay. In addition, I always try to provide you some data points of interest. I know numbers are a good thing for us to look at here. And also, I always try to give you some perhaps new perspective or interesting information that you might not really already know about when it comes to special education, because it is pretty complex, so there's always something new to learn about. Before I begin, I would like to certainly introduce to you again my supervisor of special services, Christine Golden, who is in the back, and another member of my leadership team, Deb Service, is here as our district-wide inclusion consulting teacher. So thank you for being here tonight, and certainly the support of my colleagues, the principals who work at this hard every day. And the thing I noticed tonight in all of the slides is the word all, and that's a very important word to me.
It would be in your Wordle.
It's in my Wordle, and probably the biggest word in my Wordle. Okay. So during the presentation tonight, I will review with you our district's special education report card relative to special targets or specific targets that the state has for our performance. I'll share data about the prevalence rate of disabilities in our district. I'll touch briefly on our CMT and CAPT performance, although we did speak about that in the fall, but I'll go back to that a little bit tonight. I'll share with you a bit of a historical perspective about our Ready, Set, Go program, and I will close with a brief budgetary sort of consideration for you to think about as we move into that season, and then end with a reminder of why we do the work we do. So my annual report card is published each year, and much like Erin's report that she started with tonight that is now available to us, it's always a year behind. So this is 2011, 2012, and the publication date is June 2013. This full report is available on the state website, so anybody could go and see what all our 20 indicators are and how we actually score in this ongoing data collection process. So it is an ongoing data collection process to ensure that the district is meeting specific targets in order to ensure that we receive our federal entitlement grants under IDEA. So, and it's become bigger and bigger and bigger. It is a daily reporting process in my office. It takes a lot of time and a lot of dedication to the gals in my office, so I do want to give them a lot of credit. So if we can flip to the next page, you'll see that we do once again meet our requirements as a district, and as of the 20 indicators, specific ones are selected out for targets in order to earn that grade, and the ones that we were targeted for were suspension and expulsion, and that really is a very close look at whether or not this district does discriminate against students with disabilities, meaning that they suspend them or expel them to a much larger degree than your typical student, and we do not, so we met that target. We do not have disproportionate representation in special education by our minority groups, so we are identifying across the board. We are meeting our evaluation timelines and implementing IEPs according to our state timeline, which, by the way, is 100%. You can't miss it, you have to do it. So there is a certain time period, day period, from data referral to implementation of an IEP, and we have to meet that target. And so, again, that daily reporting period. Secondary transition is about all of our students age 16 and older, ensuring that they have appropriate transition goals as part of their IEP. And what I know my staff gets tired of hearing me say, secondary IEP is a transition IEP. That's it. So end of story. So we do meet the target there. And then our data submission, again, timely, accurate data, thanks to my office. So nice job. Meets requirements. So some prevalence information. We are the blue line once again, and the yellow line is our state representation, and the red line is our DIRG representation, our district reference group. And then you have a series of years that we have been working very hard, looking very closely at our prevalence rate of disabilities in our district being pretty high, as you see, in 06 and 07, and working hard to bring it more in line with where most of our districts in the state are. So we're proud that we've actually lowered that compared to the state, and we continue to work toward our DIRG reference group percentages. But again, if you look at the data points, it's really not that far away. This chart always gets, you want to take a really close look at it. I think when we first put it up, it was pretty surprising, but that is all of our disability information according to each of our disability category, and you can see where numbers tend to go up, where they tend to go down, but we are actually pretty consistent in our groups, and we like to see that our numbers are continuing to decline in our LD category, continuing decline in our speech and language impaired category, and then obviously we continue to see that growth in our autism population. So our numbers continue to remain very high there. But our other categories, pretty consistent. You also note along the bottom there that our pre-K numbers and our district total special ed count, again, pretty consistent. This slide gives you a pretty good perspective of how many students are actually special education students who are Simsbury students who are not educated within our public schools in this district. So while we may be up to, again, numbers have gone up in the numbers of students going out, and most of that we attribute to our choice placements, parents choosing magnet school placements for their students with disabilities. We continue to have the obligation to conduct the IEP meetings to ensure that those students who sit in those schools who are Simsbury residents receive services, and we are billed for those services. Similar to when we sit at a PPT and make a recommendation that a student should receive their educational program in a facility outside of Simsbury Public Schools because their needs are such that they really require a more restrictive, specialized placement. And we have seen that that number has gone up this year by a pretty large number. They've been very consistent for a time period, and now we're up 5 students or so, and actually that's an October 1 data point that you have there. So, that is something that we're taking a very close look at. And, it is something that we have seen. Primarily, our children with autism are the children that we find we are needing to seek additional resources and support for. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later when we get to the Ready, Set, Go piece. CMT and CAPT, we can move quickly, I think, to the next slide, but the piece for us that's important is remember that in special education, just like in general education, how are we preparing our students to take the new Smarter Balanced Assessment? And I'll explain to you a little bit of the differences that we're going to see in that. For our 2013, this is a quick slide of our district quality indicators on our district dashboard. So this would be something that we were working toward. One of our goals is moving our percentage of students meeting goal on the CMT and on the CAPT, and our numbers, when you separate them out by grade level, 30% in 2013, so a little up from our 24.5. That's what we want to see. A nice jump for our grades 7 and 8. Our scores were really strong in 7 and 8. And then a huge jump in our 10th grade CAPT for, again, this is your cohort of students. It's not your same. So it's, really hard to say that, we've grown in our skills, but certainly we had much better performance on that assessment. This is a slide where you can sort of see, which surprises me when I look at this slide, students scoring at goal or above, CMT and CAP together. Again, we've looked pretty consistent. What I highlight always is that our scores are outstanding. When you look at state scores, when you compare Simsbury students with disabilities to state numbers for students with disabilities, our scores are outstanding. But what we look at is our writing, which is going up, and we're feeling really good about that because we felt pretty stuck. And then the fact that our scores are consistent. We don't see huge jumps, and our concern that our achievement gap still continues to be a good 30% or more. How do we begin to close that gap? And that's where talking about our Common Core state standards, it's really important because all of our students have to meet those grade level standards. It's a staircase of leading toward college and career readiness, and that counts for all kids. Again, that word all. So we have to pay very close attention to that, and we've been working at that for the past few years with our special education teachers in helping them unwrap those standards and really write IEPs that are aligned with them. We have a small population of students who do take a very different, unique assessment called the skills checklist. That checklist will be administered in the springtime, again, for those same students, the CMT CAP skills checklist, even though the rest of the district will be taking the pilot for the Smarter Balanced Assessment. So that's important for you to know that all of our special ed students more than likely will be taking the Smarter Balanced Assessment, with the exception the skills checklist students. So we will administer that one more time. There will be an alternate assessment for the Smarter Balanced for those same students, and again, it will be aligned with our Common Core state standards and grade level standards. We don't know what the targets are going to be for our population, our special education student. That's not out yet. That's another unknown, but I'm sure as we get closer to our actual assessment dates, we will begin to understand those better. So our Common Core Smarter Balanced Assessment is designed with universal access in mind. So those accommodations that many of our students with special education needs have to have, we have to consider what those accommodations are going to be at a yearly IEP before they sit and take the CMT or the CAP. The Smarter Balanced Assessment was designed so you don't necessarily have to do that. Those accommodations, for the most part, are embedded. It's accessible. So they meet accessibility standards. There are still some accommodations that are going to be requested through the IEP process, but they're still embedded in the test. And then there are going to be some very, very unique separate accommodations that you sort of have to petition the state in order to allow a student to take those. So there's Erin's slide, which she had placed up in front of you in the fall. That gives a good description.
From the state. It's not my, from the state.
Oh, I thought you did this.
I
don't know if I want to take
don't
credit
wanna
for
own
it.
that
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Understandably so.
I thought, it's good to know, Erin, but, it is a good slide.
Yeah, good point.
It is a good slide. The print's pretty small, but that's a good thing for me to see that the print's small because it means there are a lot of accommodations in there. It's a good thing. So you can sort of see what's universally there, what do we have to target through an IEP, and what do you have to petition. So those are sort of how that's outlined for kids. So it's important that we know that these are rigorous. Our curriculum aligns with our Common Core state standards. We've known that. We've been working toward that, and our teachers have to understand that all students need to be able to access those standards. So, and it's, it makes me think of the important words that we talked about all during this evening's discussion. It's the collaboration, it's the reflection, it's teachers working together to meet the needs of these students in those classrooms. That's what it's going to take, and it's hard work. So we again have been working toward that. I don't know how that slide got in. I thought
No,
we
I
moved
know.
that out, but
see
here it
that
is.
one.
But those are some of the words that we have to pay attention to. That's what our students are going to need to be able to know and be able to do. And so special education students as well as general education students, and our teachers have to work together to ensure that we get them there. We can just move forward. We've already talked all about this today. This slide is here. It speaks specifically to the fact that not only do we have to design our instruction in a very special way, we have to be talking about universal design, not only for the test, but in our classrooms. And technology plays a very important role in that. You've heard about our technology plan. Again, all students, our special ed students, are involved in that discussion, but sometimes we have to have a separate discussion called assistive technology for our special education students, where we have to be sure that they have access to those things in the classroom. That's the end of my discussion about Common Core. So I'm a little out of sync because we were changing some
Find your
slides,
place.
but that's okay. I'm going to find my place. I want to now bring your attention to some of the supports that we did add this year to help ensure that we can provide these supports in the classroom, that our teachers are coached along with the instructional coaches we talked about today. That supervisory support in your building level is critical. So that out-of-district PPT facilitator has come on board this year who is really case managing those 53 students that you saw on the outplacement chart, along with 25, 28 special education students who sit in our private schools in Simsbury. So that's a caseload of about 70 students, managing that to allow your director and your supervisor to be in district, supporting our teachers, supporting our students here in our schools. We've also added increased supervisory supports at the middle school and high school. Again, every day we have a high school supervisor who is in that building, not out at out-of-district PPTs, but in that building supporting teachers at the middle school. I'm sure Brian can say his appreciation of that, having that support in his building every day, and at the preschool level, adding additional preschool supervisory supports. It's been really very influential in the work that we're able to accomplish. So we appreciate that and thank you for that. Our Ready, Set, Go autism program, big graph. I'll give you a minute just to look at it. A lot of numbers there, but that's a historical perspective. We began the program in 1998-99 school year. 5 students, 1 teacher. And as our district-wide autism population grew exponentially in the next 10 or so years, you see our Ready, Set, Go population grew as well, and we have added some teachers. The numbers in red, the years in red, reflect a substantial change to that Ready, Set, Go program. When we opened our doors with Ready, Set, Go, we opened the doors with the assistance of an outside agency, a cooperative group, came to Simsbury and helped us build that program, provided weekly consultative supports that we did pay for, and we grew our own expertise in that program. And by 2004, 2005, we were able to eliminate our need for outside services and have our own in-house supervisor of that program who really led much of the work, supported our teachers, and really helped our parents with that very unique child through that process. And that person remained in the program until you see the blue line, and then we had a shift. One of the shifts that we had in our district, and not just this district, but every district, was the need to ensure that we have behavioral supports available for all students. We added a behavioral support specialist at the secondary level and at our elementary level, and this position actually grew to that because they had such behavioral expertise. You also notice that our numbers of students with autism grew exponentially. They're not all sitting in our Ready, Set, Go program, and the needs to service those students in our schools who aren't in our Ready, Set, Go program, we needed that expertise there, so we spread that expertise out. And we did see a change in 2009-10 where we did lose this particular person's expertise, and again kept our behavioral expertise at the elementary level, but again are feeling the effects of, are we too big? The little asterisks there are outplacements. So we saw our first Ready, Set, Go outplacement in 2006-07, saw more the years after that, more the years after that, and this year we're seeing a significant impact. So we're taking pause and we're thinking very strategically about that and how do we need to support that very important program. So we'll be thinking about that as we move to budgetary time. Any questions about that particular slide?
So the first column is the entire district, the second column is just the elementary?
The Ready, Set, Go autism program. So we have students under the diagnosis of an autism spectrum disorder that don't sit in our Ready, Set, Go program because they don't need discrete trial, applied behavioral analysis instructions. We still have the students we need to service in our special education programs in our general ed, in our typical building programs.
But that's everywhere from kindergarten to
preschool.
Preschool through K, through 6. Through 6.
Through K. Okay, preschool through 12. High school.
12.
Mm-hmm.
In our outplacements.
You're asking about Ready, Set, Go?
I was asking about Ready, Set,
Oh,
Go.
Ready, Set, Go, preschool through 6.
Right.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Our
the question.
outplacement students, what grades are they in?
We have students who were Ready, Set, Go students who were placed in their middle school and high school years. And we have elementary age Ready, Set, Go students.
That are placed out.
And that, to your point, Helen, on your graphic with the stars, is the first time that we saw that. And I think one thing we need to think about, and we'll talk more formally about it in the budget process, is when that position shifted I think we lost a little something in terms of a conduit of communication to parents and a conduit of transitions from elementary to middle to high school. And I think that's
It's a very significant piece.
something that we need to really think about in a program that is that involved, that high profile in a sense, and now that has grown, because you can see the numbers have grown and stayed stable, the staffing went down, and the scope of what that individual did changed. So we have some things that Helen's going to talk about a little more in the presentation.
So that's my data report primarily. I have a lot of information in my annual report, which is posted on the website under the special education section of our district website. So you should access it there, and I encourage everyone, general public, to take a look. It has a wealth of information in there. We began talking about our the budgetary considerations for 2014-15, and so the first one that we are talking about is, again, a focused look at our Ready, Set, Go program and the supervision and leadership that we can provide there. Program supervision and oversight relative to instructional methodology, supporting our teachers and supporting our parents and our families through transitions, and that's really a very critical piece. We know it. And it's also important for our teachers in those next step programs to have the support of that expertise as they move those children into their classrooms. We also know that that paraprofessional support is essential in our Ready, Set, Go program, and we're seeing some significant impact in that particular group of non-certified personnel that we really need to take a look at. We're also looking at our high school special education program and our service delivery model. If you had your enrollment numbers in front of you, I mentioned that our special education enrollment numbers are very consistent. You don't see a big swing in numbers for the past 5 years. We're pretty much the same. But our high bubble is now in the secondary school, where you begin to see a lower level in your elementary. But again, a lot of significant needs. We need our elementary staff. How do we support our high school program that is seeing an increased number of students? So we're concerned about that. We also know that we have to make sure that our students are leaving college career ready. Transition IEPs, and how do we ensure that our special education teachers at that high school level can really support students in that transition process. There will be some decreases in a couple of things, maybe a switch from full-time paras in one place to Ready, Set, Go, and the instructional tools that support universal access to our curriculum for all students, and the support that our teachers will need in utilizing those technology tools. So those are some of the things we're thinking about as a department as we move forward with the budget. So we talk about the job coaching, the supervisory support, accessible curriculum, and that's under professional development, supporting that through the technology purchases in our classrooms. So beyond academics, it's not just numbers, it's not just Common Core, it's not just that, it's relationships. And that's very important to us in Simsbury, and we take a great deal of pride in really the number of students who participate in our unified sports. So Melissa, I think it was Melissa who was here. Megan?
Megan.
Okay. Who was here. Russell was her last name, right?
Yes.
Talking with us and introduced in her participation in the unified program, both unified sports, unified theater. It's a very worthwhile program. It partners students with disabilities with partners, same-age peers, and supports their participation in not only recreational activities, but even learning how to lead a healthy lifestyle and having friends. It's critical and it's important. Our unified theater has been extremely positive and great success, if you can catch one of their presentations, written, choreographed, the whole 9 yards, done by students. And this YouTube video just got posted, special permission to show it to you, but it's another I think it'll help you understand how we really pride ourselves in making sure that we can help children establish these very important relationships.
Yeah, I'm good.
Awesome. Any big square.
Let's go down.
Hi, and welcome to the Sid and Kate Show. I'm Sid.
I am Kate.
What'd you do this weekend?
For this weekend, I was at my house for my sister's birthday party. It's in my house.
And we have the Friendship Walk on Saturday, which was for Best Buddies.
Yes.
What'd you like about that?
I think about that. I think I love the food there. And I'm also afraid that I need to sit down.
Yeah, the walk was a little long for you.
Hey.
We started Best Buddies at Simsbury High School, where we're both juniors, because we wanted people to have the opportunity to have friendships just like ours. Over the summer, I went to a leadership conference in Indiana for Best Buddies, and it was just an awesome experience. There were so many people, and I met a ton of kids, and they all just are after what we're after, which is inclusion. And then we had the meet and greet here.
Yeah, and like 45 people is in my house. I was doing a pizza, and this is my day friends for cooking something.
We had a bonfire and everyone was playing basketball.
Yeah.
It was fun. Everyone was getting to know each other, so it was good.
Best Buddies is a way for people to come together and just create good friendships and bonds and kind of go through life together and enjoy each other's company. This has definitely affected me having you at my track team outside of school because, well, despite how much you make fun of me, I joined Best Buddies because of you. But I do enjoy track with you because even if I'm having a bad day, you're there to bring it up.
I know Kate from Simsbury High, and Kate and I were on the homecoming court, and it was awesome. And I enjoy being a part of Best Buddies because I like to make new friendships and hopefully enjoy the fun activities that we get to do.
The main reason we started Best Buddies chapter at Simsbury High School was because we want everyone to have a chance to have a friendship like ours. And we met when we were in first grade naturally, and we've been best friends since. We're juniors at Simsbury High School in Simsbury, Connecticut, and Best Buddies is to get people to do what we do.
We make some brownies.
We watch The Walking Dead. We like to go to Brookside, our favorite bagel place.
What?
We dance. Our goal for Best Buddies is to have this expand past high school and make this have everyone take it with them to the real world and keep it going. And imagine if everyone had a friendship like ours.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty awesome. We encourage everyone to join either our Simsbury chapter, chapter near them, or to make their own like we did.
Friendship it was the best.
Friendship is very important, and everyone needs to value that. And if you want more information on Best Buddies, go to bestbuddies.org.
Okay, next time to
See you next time on the Sid and Kate Show.
So we've met some very significant targets this year, and we're pretty proud of that. And we have a very dedicated faculty, very great partners with our families, and the support of our administrators and our board, and we thank you for that. I also want to recognize my leadership team, the IEP compliance team. We work really hard to make sure that our IEPs are accurate, and serving our students, my SEPTO organization, and my Special Services Advisory Council. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Very, very good. Questions?
Yeah, Helen, could you talk just a little bit more the increased supervision at the middle school and the high school, which I've heard you several times say has been really impactful. Can you just talk a little bit more about exactly what that impact is?
Sure. So the impact, I think, that has been most significant is that you have a go-to person knowledgeable about special education in your building with whatever question you have. You don't have to write an email, place a phone call, try and get some supports there. Principal, assistant principals have access to that same support. Special education is a pretty complicated, complex area, and really that expertise is needed sometimes at a moment's notice.
Right.
And so I think that's been clearly helpful. The other impact is in our classrooms. So we have that supervisory support, someone going into classrooms, working with teachers, helping ensure that their progress monitoring tools are effective. Are we really looking at the student data? Making sure that we're trying to establish those partnerships with general education. Co-teaching is something that we've been talking a lot about. You heard again it mentioned in our general ed discussion today, and it's something I think that we really need to push toward in special education. And our teachers, our special education teachers, their presence in general ed classrooms is something that would be helpful for all kids.
Right. Well, and I especially appreciate hearing that because that's one of the areas we got feedback from staff was the stress within the classroom.
Right.
And with the new, with the new staffing requests you're looking at, I know, to your point about complexity, and I know we've talked about this before, but there's a lot of complexity around implementing the plans, and that's where you tend to get feedback from staff, parents. That it's just they're so complex. There's so many details to keep on top of. Do you see the staffing requests as helping deal with that issue overall?
Yes, I think that one of the most critical aspects for a special education teacher is having a manageable caseload because of that complexity of the IEP. And if you have many, many, many students on your caseload, you're losing sight of some of those pieces on that IEP. I'd look at a high school special education teacher that needs, if they have 25 students on a caseload, they need to connect with probably over 100 other teachers who are working with their students. That's a lot. That's a lot. And their focus has to be on that general education, access to that curriculum in order for our students to achieve those standards. So I do see that as very critical, elementary all the way through high school.
Right. Thanks.
So Helen, 11% of our folks have an IEP of some form. So I think that would.
Yes, they do.
I know that's always surprises me. I know the last couple of years that surprises me. And
Yes.
I know.
It has been that still.
It is daunting in terms of the level and complexity of those IEPs. I guess I just wanted to say in terms of the Ready, Set, Go program, I had personal experience with that 10 years ago. Very worthwhile program, which definitely, from a resource perspective, needs attention, needs focus, but is very effective, and I think definitely helps. I also would comment on something you raised, Matt, in terms of transitions and communication, going from one of the elementary schools to middle school to high school. It can't be overlooked. The communication around that via the IEPs kind of maturing and kind of the anticipation of that really is a point of potential loss in terms of the student taking a step back or progress and continued progress. And I think to the extent we're going to put resources towards things, I think those would be well utilized.
And we talk about the big T and little t in special ed, the big transition, honestly, that's what the state and the federal government are requiring us to consider. Transition, school, post-secondary, work, career. But that little t, transition for all of our students with IEPs, from whatever level, preschool to K, 6th grade to 7, 8 to 9, out. They're very, very important, and they are hard to navigate when you're a parent of a child with a disability. And it's very, so we are thinking a lot about that and trying to put some resources, change what we're doing in essence to ensure that we have that across the board for next year. So you'll hear more about that as well.
Excellent.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very important and worthwhile presentation.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we are at the conclusion. Oh, no, we're not. We have one more. I'm sorry.
We're not for Burke. We can't forget Burke.
Left behind.
Thank you. All right, we are in Exhibit 9, Capital Improvement Plan.
Right, I am handing out, coming
thank
around here is a
is an updated CIP, 6-year CIP, which is trying to respond to some of the suggestions from our last conversation. I want to just highlight a few of the numbers and projects that are listed in bold.
Yeah, too.
So on our list here, in the very first column of projects and the estimated cost, there's only one number in bold, and that's $280,000, and that is under the Henry James renovation area, and it was actually the request to give us, give you a sense of what some improvements would cost. And under that alternate B, I have a first floor interior hallway number of $280,000. That would entail new flooring, new ceilings, lockers, and lighting. Okay. And I really want to thank Steve Twitchell for putting together vendor quotes, having vendors come out. There's an asbestos removal aspect that would have to happen first for the flooring with the tile that's under the existing carpeting. So there are a lot of decisions that would have to be made there, but these were good estimates that contractors helped us with, and that's work that could happen outside. That would be maintenance work that would happen outside of a state grant program, and would not have those timing issues of having to submit documentation and wait for state aid on that. So that's the only new dollar cost here. The rest of the changes in bold are really just reordering, reprioritization. I just want to highlight those quickly. Matt, did you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
District network infrastructure. Previously, we had in the second year, FY 15-16, we had a $350,000 item, and what we've done is we've moved $150,000 of that into a priority for the upcoming year, and that is in working with Jason Casey. That is really focusing on storage and backup networks, or a SAN, and that's sort of the highest focus that we would like to be able to start this summer. We had a high-level network review done. As you probably know, we've had an increase in our total number of servers, and with the virtualization project on top of that, we have a greater reliance on servers. So really getting those mapped out and organized so they can be scalable for expansion, which we know will continue, is the focus of that, and this would be the first part of that effort. The moving back down to the Henry James project, the total estimate that we showed last year was almost $10 million for the project, to include science classrooms, a new library media center, and office reconfiguration, amongst other interior work. So all I've done there is, at your request, alternate A is just the main office security piece, and Brian and I did a series of meetings and conference calls with Castle Booz architects, and they gave us the cost estimate for the $775,000. And on page 2 of what I gave you is just a quick illustration of, if you look at where the main lobby is now, to the right, they would actually make that lobby a little bit more narrow, but you'd still enter in that main lobby, and then once the doors were closed, you would enter through the office, and that's that first door on your left there. So you can visualize that you have a counter, reception area, principal's offices, and a conference room. Imagine that right next to the principal's office, which would be a great thing for Henry James. So that's just a quick concept there.
Imagine.
I have some more details about square footage and cost, but it would include furnishings for those new office spaces, and then it would swap spaces and just return where the existing offices are to a classroom use. It's not new really new walls or new construction there. Also, in speaking with the fire marshal's office, we're trying to make some improvements in the amount of sprinkler that we have, but this number does not include going with the rest of the building. We're at about 50% now. It does assume that we would make some increase in our sprinklered area, but it's not going to that full extent. So the $775,000 I simply subtracted from the total project. I showed it as a phase one, and I just moved that out 1 year. So that's the 8.9 million roughly. So I'm just showing that there to illustrate that if we were to make that progress in this first year, you'd still end up having we still have to verify what portion could be reimbursable of just this main office project. So I don't show state reimbursement on that yet. And if we confirm that is something that we would want to do, and the funding was there, we still have to go through an architect's review, submit paperwork, and really wouldn't be able to start construction for a full year beyond that if it goes through the state.
But the 280 of improvements potentially.
It's just work that we can have done.
Could have that up and ready, and then be ready to accept the front office project.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And your full year out would be out from?
Well, funding, assuming funding in May, it's really technically available in July. You get the architect to do the study, submit the paperwork to the state. It's going to the next
year. So really is a full year out
So-
from May.
It's really
So
2015.
office would be like 2016.
It's like 2015 to be able to know that you're, it's taking a year from this July. If we were talking about the current year, July of 2014, a year out from that is the earliest that you could really see the state giving you the go-ahead and then being able to go out to bid.
So then we're looking a full year out after that, 2016. Does that answer your
Be
question,
sooner than
Sue? Was that what you?
Right, so you're saying you could, 2015,
Yeah, it depends,
you could move
because
the
this
office.
is interior works, not like, it depends
Right.
again what you'd still have summers, and that might push you out depending upon whether you could really do the work during
Okay.
the school year.
I see
And then there is one other area I just wanted to stop in case you have questions about that Henry James portion.
You have also on the sketch here from Castle Booze, you have the main office with the SRO office?
Meaning
Without that,
Yes.
so.
Meaning that there was one concept where you tried to fit an office within this space, and it just was felt to be too tight, and we had an office in a nearby area.
Another suitable space that you're.
Not be part of this
Of this
particular
piece, but there would
location.
be.
You'd prefer it, right? The other space?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So with the current footprint of the building, there's an adjacent space near the proposed reload that would house the SRO.
Okay.
Now, two other areas that I just wanted to highlight, and I grouped them together. They were a few projects apart previously. It's the Simsbury High School turf field project. Previously, we had $750,000 total project amount, and it was in the 2016 year. So what we've done here, Dane Street and I met with with a firm that works in this field. One of the questions the board had was, did our $750,000 estimate include the track and the field? It did, but based on the advice and the site visit that we had, the highest priority and why we're now showing $250,000 moving forward to that first year is that the track itself needs to be resurfaced. It's at a point where we're seeing wear, and it's an ideal time to do it before you have to get into any repair of the base below it. So it's not as expensive if you do that now. This is again part of the expected lifespan, and we'll have further reports and details for you. So that cost is estimated at $150,000. So we would want to do that work with the funding. We would like to be able to do that work. in this coming summer to ideally hit that and make sure that the surfacing is done before any further deterioration. Then the other 100,000 is recommended to do some turf work that would help to repair and get some further life so that the actual turf replacement, which I'm now showing in 2018, can be extended further. So if we had chosen to say let's do it all at that same time, it's again the same amount of money but staggering it and trying to get the optimal, you know.
So the 250, 150 is resurface and 100 is repair
Of the track,
and 100 is repair on the turf.
And the items that were there's some drainage related things with the turf field. And then lastly, I just want to point out that the tennis court repair project, that 430,000, we moved that out. So really, we've not changed the overall dollars and just reprioritized, and that was our recommendation earlier, that we felt we could wait another year on that. But that is again a maintenance project that is related to that whole field area. We just wanted to give you the updated snapshot, and if there are other questions tonight, we can bring some other information back at a future meeting.
The tennis courts, when or have we done any repair to them? I just can't remember.
We do an annual, it's literally an annual crack patching that a vendor does, and this past year we actually had a better success with that so far. But it's one of those every winter with the freezing and thawing, there's moisture and there's some underground springs in that area, so I'm told. So you end up having this crack network.
Mm-hmm. It's on a very marshy spot. I mean, it's a wet
have to rebuild
spot.
it. There is no like interim repair. We tried to get quotes on could we do a large section to repair it. It's either or. You either redo it, build it with a new base and drainage, or you keep patching things like we're doing.
Okay.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you for this updated patch and repair. All right, we have concluded our information and reports, and we are now on to our second public audience. Anyone wishing to address the board may do so. All right, seeing none, I would also like to thank SCTV for their countless hours of volunteer service for all our meetings and all our school activities this past year as we are closing out our year. And also for those that are viewing this meeting, that if you're in the spirit of charitable giving, donation to SCTV to continue the services that they do and provide meetings such as this and activities of our schools and our students. So again, thank you to SCTV from the Board of Education.
We will be having a show coming up, I believe, February, I'm not sure, February, on the Common Core that we're going to be doing with SCTV.
Right, and we'll have
So an informational.
Absolutely, we'll have dates on those.
Yep.
Absolutely, very good. With that, our next meeting will be Tuesday, January 14th, 2014, right here in the Board of Education room. So this is our last meeting of the year. And I would like to wish all my colleagues a very happy holidays, and we will see you in January.
Very happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you.